Welcome back to Live at the Forum 2021 from Washington, D.C. and the National Association of Workforce Boards. I'm your host, Ron Painter, and it's a pleasure for me to sit down to not only our big sponsor, Equus, Mark Douglas from Equus, but also a friend. We get a lot of conversations back and forth together, and I really appreciate the opportunity to pick your brain about where are we. So it's great to have you sit down with me.
Fantastic. We were going to do wrestling opening, but
we
decided nobody would appreciate it as much as us. And I got scheduled at 5:00 on a Friday. So
I know it's really it's not interview time. It's another kind of time on a Friday afternoon.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but East Coast people just checked out because they're done. And in a rolling period, everybody else is going home too.
I know. Well, we'll appeal to the West Coast.
All right.
We'll talk about West Coast issues.
Perfect.
Let me just say that Mark joined Equus Workforce Solutions in 2014 as a regional director. He was then promoted to Vice President of Operations, followed by Senior Vice President of Operations and President of Equus in 2018. He has an extensive background in workforce services, helping him lead the business development and the changes that we're all going through. He drives operational excellence and growth for Job Corps and in career centers across the nation. Prior to Equus, Mark had experience with the Chief Operating Officer at WorkNet in Tampa and in Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance in Florida. Before that, he served as president of Dynamic Education Systems in Phoenix, Arizona, a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard, a member of the VFW. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Tampa. So again, welcome, Mark. Who wrote that? I don't know. I guess your PR crew.
Oh.
Hey, it's been a crazy year. Talk a little bit about Equus and what this year has done to you guys.
So busy. 25% of our team never worked remote. They stayed open the entire time. Talking to the 3,000 Equus employees. As we all know, your pandemic experience has been 100%, dependent upon where you live. And so everybody's experience is going to be a little different. Like everybody else, we had to transition the other 75% into virtual services.
And quickly.
Weeks. We have a fantastic support team. Deb Giordano, who many of you have seen, led the effort to bring some of those best practices into play. We had local leaders that had to solve those problems. And when you really think about what we did, if we had Knob last year and you had said, hey, we're all going to be virtual in 3 months, there isn't anybody that would have stayed in the room. They'd have walked out and said, not in my community.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about going back to offices. Many people have. Some people are getting ready to. Some of our big partners are talking about how they're going to be going back into offices. And the really big challenge is going to be keeping the best practices, enhancing them, so that we can continue to serve more people in a more robust, maybe is the way to put it, manner, because we know that there's a lot of people that are getting ready to go back to work.
So when you talk about thinking about the best practices,
Yep.
What are some of the core lessons you think you learned last year, Equus learned? Because again, this all had to be converted bang, right now. So what are the things that you think really mattered, and now what do we have to improve on?
Drive-through job fair, that you're not allowed to. That's a big one.
Yeah.
That across the country, all of a sudden, we don't want people coming in offices, but people need help. And so the next thing you know, you're handing out job leads to people driving through parking lots. Well, then it advances to what about the people that are using the not homeless shelters, but drive-through food pantries? And how do we engage there? That's been a really big deal. We rolled out a partnership with LinkedIn Learning and how to bring access to their training to more people. The numbers that we're going to see over that pandemic period of 6 months, we're used to common measures. Well, now we're going to be talking about real measures. The real measures of increased engagement, people coming back in with real need, and how do we re-engage them with who we know really needs them, and it's the employers. Employers around the country, it doesn't matter where I've traveled to, it's an unbelievable amount of help wanted signs. And as people start to come in off the sideline, they're going to need retraining because the jobs that they used to do are going to change. They may have decided to make a career change, but I think the consistent thing we're seeing is people are coming back to work, and it's going to be really exciting to see how all of these things we've done together really start making a big impact.
What's the one area of technology, Mark, you think and Equus is a very large player. So when I say the industry needs to do, I mean, what is the big area of technology we need to be thinking about or acting on, really?
Well, data matters. You know, if you're lucky enough to spend more than 5 minutes with me, and we're not talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning or Indian Premier League or something kind of off the wall, it's really about performance. You know, we're measured every day around the return on investment to communities, the outcomes. If the data systems don't start talking to each other and really telling the story of who touched the system, how did they get a job, when did they get a job, all of those things are critically important. So the people that fund us and that count on us to make a good investment of federal dollars, we have to be able to tell that story.
You mentioned drive-through job fairs, or, you know, how are we accessing people that may be homeless? Do you feel like there was more of a focus in the pandemic on the individual, on the customer? What are they experiencing? How do we reach them?
I think that's starting to really happen. You know, I think that if you're not getting media from every angle, you know, you could hear that no one's going back to the office. And I don't believe it, because I have 3,000 coworkers that when we said go back to the office, here's our plan, we'll work with you on flexibility, how do we do that? I got more people saying I can't wait to go see my coworkers and excited about going into the office than I ever got I'm not doing it. And so we have to be smart about that. There's going to be challenges with people in childcare. There's going to be schools that don't open quite the same way. But as employers, we're going to have to be ready to answer that challenge and understand that we can bring some of the things that maybe we wouldn't do back to the table and look for good solutions.
Do you think that focus on the customer, do you think that's a trend that's going to continue with workforce development, that we're going to see more people try to figure out, how do I focus on what's the consumer experience?
Well, it's both. Employers are always going to be driving the demand. You know, if small business in the United States doesn't come back as fast as we'd like it to, more people sit on the sidelines, so then retraining becomes the challenge. But I really have confidence in all of us that that's not going to be the case. And so we have to be ready to really think about short-term training. Is it really about credentials, or is it about skills upgrade that really makes you employable? And how do we really start talking about that, as much as we're talking about people that need long-term training?
Equus does a lot of work around apprenticeship. Talk about the efforts that you all are involved in.
So Equus is a small but, you know, mighty piece of a really big organization called BrightSpring Health Services and PharMerica. We're a big healthcare company, and we have the same challenges that all healthcare companies have around around nurses and pharmacy techs. We're leaning in heavily as an enterprise to really look at how we can solve that. And one of the ways is we're starting our own apprenticeship programs. We're starting to look at how we can sponsor nurses. We're starting to look at how we can help communities. And so for us, being able to work with the Department of Labor on apprenticeship has really become something that's a big focus, not for Equus, but for our larger partners and then internally.
Is it a weird sort of situation to be both the provider, but then also to step back and think, oh, we're a company, we're a business, we've got these issues as well? Do people recognize that when they're talking to you, that Equus is that dual thing, whatever?
No, not at all. Equus has a little over 3,000 employees. You know, we're supporting the communities that we're lucky enough to work in. But when you think about how to help your boss, the CEO, solve his big problems, you know, before it was about, you know, you guys go do great work. We're really proud of you. And now it's, you're doing great work for everybody else. Why aren't
How
you?
about yeah?
How
How
about
about
me?
us?
How about me? And what are you doing for us? And so, you know, for my leadership team, I think this is the most exciting time in a little while, because we're not just a really well operated piece of business that we are. We're actually going to make a difference across the board.
We touched a little bit on it, Mark. What do you think are some of the lessons that, some of the habits, maybe not the lessons, but the habits that people got into that we're going to have to adapt to, or as an industry, we're going to have to get better at or embrace?
Working too much, not taking time off, living at work is horrible. You know, I get to make my first trip. I get back, and then that Monday morning, I'm back at that home office, and I immediately was like, I don't like this. Like, if I had to continue to work at home and not see the people that I work with, my friends that are here at the conference, that's not fun. And so we all have to be conscious of the fact that we developed some really good habits, connecting on video, following up with people that you know are struggling. But we have to really understand that some people put in extra hours and that their balance is out. You know, they getting up, grabbing a cup of coffee, sitting down in that chair, and my wife can tell you, and then not showing up until dinner and not leaving the office. That's not good.
Yeah.
And so, you know, getting back to being able to see people is critically important.
Are you all, is that a message you all are making sure your staff understands?
It's a message I think that everybody is conscious of, but it's something that none of us, you probably do a terrible job of it, is
Well,
remembering that we have to do it. Like, it's not, how do we connect virtually? You know, everybody figured it out.
But I think but to your point, I mean, I think working at home, I will admit I don't have great, you know, I'm not one of those people that sits down and I'm 6 hours, 7 hours straight at the computer. I'm up and down. But I will say that starts at, you know, 8:30 in the morning when I casually look at email, and it ends at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night when I stop casually looking at it, because it's always there. It's always in your face. It's been a year of, there's always an issue that's percolating.
Yeah, ask Brad Williams when you see him about where my next vacation is, and he'll be like, Mark's the worst. He sets the worst example for all of us, because I work a lot and I enjoy what I do. I love the people that I work with, but we have to get the balance here in order to be better later.
Is that a lesson that we need to figure out for the front line when we're talking to clients, is to how those mental health issues, that balance issue?
Yeah, I think you can all think about someone you knew that you were talking to virtually that was having that bad day, and like you hung up and then you immediately called them and you're like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah, you saw them on the video. You knew something was going
all right?
on.
Like, I understand. And, you know, back to the pandemic experience depends on where you live. You know, if you live in the suburbs, you're out in your yard. If you live in a high rise, you're probably not. Last summer. And, you know, living in Florida, you know, everybody vacationed in Florida and went home, but you would talk to people that didn't go on vacation, and you know that getting some fresh air, getting to see people again, it really does matter.
I think I don't want to say like my favorite part, because that's sort of bizarre to say my favorite part of the pandemic. But, you know, one of the things that I appreciated about it, and I really got into the habit of telling people to stop apologizing, was when their dog showed up, or the cat showed up, or most especially when their kids showed up on the screen. Because dang, it really reminded us that we're about humanity, that we're in a business that touches people's lives, and we have to remember that there are other things out there as a part of that life. I think, coming back to your point about balance.
So imagine being a brand new project director for Equus and your
Yeah.
first call with me, and all of a sudden your 5-year-old blasts into the room and says, "I spilled coffee," and she's like paranoid. And then he comes back 2 minutes later, and I'm still laughing, and he's like, "I blew up the kitchen." It's like, you probably need to go. We can talk later.
And
Um,
you,
and it happens, and we,
Yeah.
that's who we are, and it's important that we all remember that.
it is important. Um, Mark, where can I learn more about Equus?
Call me.
Just call you
Just
direct.
call me up.
Are you gonna give us like 1-800-555-15?
No, but if somebody
Okay.
owns Equus Equus digits, I want them. No, we're our team is prides themselves on being accessible. You can come to our website, obviously. Um, I feel like I grew up in this industry. People run into Bob Knight. Well, I was the guy that was lucky enough to listen to him. Now I work with him.
Yeah.
So, we're not hard to find. We're proud of the work that we do. We're proud of the partnership with you and all the workforce boards that we work with. We're individuals that grew up here. And so we're just proud to be able to participate.
I can tell you from my part, our partnership with Equus Workforce Solutions is a partnership I am very proud of, and I do appreciate the opportunity we have off camera when we get together. In fact, you and I we had coffee, and that may have been the last face-to-face meeting I had before the pandemic.
It was amazing. Like we're saying, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Are you going to close it? Do you need help? Like, how are we going to? No, I think DC is going to close. And we're in
Yeah.
a hotel that my first cab ride, they asked, "Are you sure you want to go there?" Because they're closed. I was like, "No, there's a meeting." And the cab driver is like, "I don't think so. They've been closed for a long time."
Yeah.
So it's fantastic to be able to not only see everybody, but we know we're making an impact both to the local economy, but back at home, it's a really big deal.
Mark Douglas, President, Equus Workforce Solutions, thank you for taking time out and joining us. Thank you for your sponsorship and your partnership. Truly appreciate it.
Anytime.